I'm Chris Murray. I'm going to be your moderator today, and I want to welcome you to the fourth of the Partnership for Children and Youth Summer Game Plan webinar series, all aimed at providing information, resources, and inspiration to school and community-based educators around the state as we prepare for this coming summer and collectively work together to best serve young people. The Partnership for Children and Youth has been invested in summer learning and statewide efforts to increase access for many years because we believe our ability to provide high quality, engaging summer experiences for young people is a core piece of the puzzle when it comes to achieving equity in our educational system. I'm excited to be here as moderator as my colleagues and I at Bell Excel have been delivering, supporting, and evaluating out-of-school time programs across the country for 30 years. As part of my work here in California, I've been involved with the Big Lift Inspiring Summers, about which you'll hear today, since its proof of concept year in 2016. Before coming to Bell Excel, I owned and operated a nationally accredited preschool for 13 years, so I have a special spot in my heart for our youngest learners. There are many challenges to planning and operating summer programs this year, but there's also some really exciting opportunity given the increased public resources and the resilience we've seen in the stakeholders in this work. When it comes to those public resources, there are a couple of key sources to lift up. The California legislature and governor recently passed AB 86, which included a historic $4.6 billion for expanded summer learning opportunities. Now, this money is going out to school districts now and is intended to be used this summer throughout the next school year and the next 2022 summer. This is on top of the American Rescue Plan Act, which was round 3 of the federal education stimulus and provides significant additional resources for expanded and summer learning. We have just released a funding guide to help you sort out these additional resources, and we'll be linking to that in the chat. Recent reports show that public school enrollment and attendance figures are trending down right now, and this is most pronounced among pre-K and kindergartners, where 4 out of 5 districts have had a decline in enrollment. There's a number of potential causes for this downward trend, including the fact that virtual learning is the most challenging and the least effective with very young children. This summer, it affords us an opportunity to reassure families and re-engage them in public schools with well-crafted programs. We know that all students need quality summer learning opportunities to thrive and grow, especially so this summer. After a year of school building closures and distance learning, we also know that unequal access and quality of learning are key drivers in educational inequities. And we know that effective engagement of families and caregivers can dramatically improve outcomes for young learners. For these reasons, schools and districts really do need to give special attention and investment to programs for our younger learners, which is why we're looking forward to this conversation today. We'll take some time to talk through potential opportunities and potential solutions for this summer. Today, we have 4 great speakers, and they bring a variety of experience and expertise across a wide range of districts and communities. Our goal is that you walk away today with increased insight on 3 big ideas. 1, how to intentionally design and implement a summer learning program to meet the needs of your youngest learners. 2, how your summer programs can embed caregiver and family engagement into programs to strengthen the program outcomes. And 3, how your summer programs could provide literacy, social emotional learning, and school readiness elements so that they can better support a transition into the upcoming school year. Now, in addition to the speakers that you'll be hearing from today, there are also several resources and reports on summer programming for younger learners that we can draw upon as we develop programs. And as you listen today, I want you to keep in mind some key lessons that some of us who've been running summer programs for our youngest learners have learned. As you're building your program, it's important to make your program cohesive between the academic and enrichment portions of the day. You may want to have full-time staff to sort of build that continuity. It's important to build in some mentorship time for your least experienced staff, and we anticipate this summer that we will see some less experienced staff in our programs. Those incoming kinders, they may need a rest time, maybe even a nap in the middle of their day. And for those littlest learners, on-site field trips can be really beneficial, whether we're living in a pandemic world or not. Similarly, those littlest learners need time outside, regardless of the pandemic world that we may or may not be living in. And lastly, because these young children are coming to us sometimes before they enter the school system, special needs students may not have been fully identified yet. And we have found that including floaters among your site staff can help to manage against those special needs students as those needs become apparent. Finally, a quick reminder, this webinar is part of a series. If this is your first time joining and the content is helpful, please check out our previous webinars on summer learning research, on staffing solutions, and on serving high school students. We're going to be asking questions as we go, as opposed to waiting till the end of the program. So please do feel free to send your questions in the chat throughout the webinar. We will include as many as we have time for. So I think we'll get things started. I'd like to kick us off by introducing you to our first panelist, Sonia Gonzalez. Sonia is currently serving as the Director of Elementary Curriculum and Instruction for the West Covina Unified School District. She's been there for 11 years. Sonia served as both an elementary and secondary administrator before making her way to the district office, where she's been with the Educational Services Department for 4 years. In total, Sonia has been in public education for over 23 years. She's a native Southern California, and she especially enjoys spending time with her large extended family. Sonia, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. And good morning to everyone. Thank you for inviting me to share a bit about what our district, West Covina Unified, is doing in terms of summer expanded learning opportunities, in particular at the elementary level. And of course, I'll focus in on our earliest learners as well. To begin, I'd like to provide you with a brief overview of our school district. So we are located in the San Gabriel Valley, California, an eastern suburb of Los Angeles. Our population is approximately 8,500 students from TK to 12th grade. Our socioeconomically disadvantaged population is at about 73%, homeless 18%, our foster youth 0.8%, and our English learners are nearly at 10%, with Spanish being the dominant language of the EL population, followed by Mandarin, Cantonese, and Vietnamese. 11.2% of our population is comprised of students with disabilities. Additionally, our majority race ethnic groups are Hispanic at 76% and Asian at about 12%. That's not on the slide, but I wanted to mention that. And we are a unified school district, and of our 15 schools, 8 of those schools are elementary schools. So West Covina is a wonderful, small to mid-sized district with a truly supportive community. Next slide. So now, turning to our plans at the elementary level for some summer learning opportunities. Our community determined that in light of the pandemic, it was truly essential for our summer programs to be engaging and fun. And this planning, which I will tell you, we are in the midst of the planning still as I speak, but it has been quite collaborative with the Educational Services Department, really working and collaborating with our site principals who have been given a good amount of autonomy in working with their staff, with their teachers, with their instructional assistants, with their parents, with their families to really determine the program that would be best for their sites. And in addition to that, in the planning process, we have a really collaborative team. There are 8 principals, truly are a professional learning community. So while they were given autonomy, there's also a lot of commonality across the sites. So our focus areas for these summer learning opportunities are social emotional learning, literacy, math, physical fitness. We really want to get that movement going for our students since everyone has been largely at home for over a year, and we want them to have fun. We'll be completely in person, and the overarching themes of engagement and fun, our literacy and math interventions will be activity-based largely and using much of our existing curriculum because our our principals and our teachers felt that there was a lot that we could utilize already. So for our earliest learners, our current TK and K students, we will be providing a literacy jumpstart so that they get a boost of engaging academics prior to the start of the school year. We thought that this was particularly important due to the difficulties our youngest learners have had engaging in the virtual environment, which obviously is something that has existed across the board. We're really going to hit phonemic awareness and phonics during those 2 weeks that we're providing that jumpstart just prior to the beginning of next school year. So in addition to literacy and math for our overall elementary program, we'll be providing coding, dance, art, STEM, and sports. And this will vary by site as each principal and their staff members have considered the needs of their individual students. So those additional components won't be offered at every school site, but it will vary. And then across the district, our counselors and social workers will provide weekly social emotional support lessons at each of our sites. And what's important to note, because again, one of our focus areas is this social emotional learning, is that these weekly lessons will be in addition to the embedded lessons and activities that our teachers will provide as well. So we really want to hit that hard. We really want to sort of feed the souls of our students. Additionally, we'll host a dual language immersion academy for our students at that will be for serve the students that are at schools where there is a dual language immersion program. While this is a program that has existed for the last several years, as we've continued to build our dual language immersion programs, this year in particular, there will be a particular focus on oral language fluency in that second language because of all the virtual instruction that has taken place. There haven't been as many opportunities as usual that we have during the school year. So that's been modified to accommodate for these times. And so all of these programs will be staffed by our district teachers. Our instructional aides will provide additional support. And we really felt it was extremely important to enlist the support of our teachers as much as they're able to be available during the summertime to provide this instruction. Really, really important. We really want them to be able to provide instruction in those areas that they have of interest. So as an example, we have an art teacher. We have a third grade teacher at one of our schools who happens to have a passion for art and is very good at it. So as an example, that is something that she will be providing during this summer since she has the unique opportunity to do so. So we really wanted to tap into the talents that our teachers have. And then with that said, above and beyond that, we are also working with outside consultants who could provide other areas of interest. For instance, I mentioned the robotics that we'll be having at a couple of our sites, and we'll be working with an outside consultant to provide those classes. And these summer program opportunities will be made available to as many of our students that we can accommodate at each of our sites. With that said, we are focusing on our prioritized pupil groups, and we are also looking at our iReady diagnostic data. That's an assessment that we use consistently across the board. So we're going to determine additional students who could benefit from the programs. And as I mentioned already at the beginning, that we are definitely still in the midst of these plans and making needed adjustments as well. So I think that about wraps it up. If I have any questions that I can answer.
Oh, there are so many questions. Sonia, thank you for that comprehensive insight, not only into what you're planning for the summer, but helping to set the stage in terms of what your community looks like. Some of the questions that have come in and that I'd like to elaborate a little bit on is you spoke about focusing on prioritized pupils and using your iReady diagnostics. Do you have an idea for how many students you're going to serve this summer? 20, 200, 2,000? Where do you think you're going to land?
It's so every one of our school sites is a different population. You know, they kind of vary, and so we're really looking at each site individually. So it will depend on their population. We don't have our precise numbers, so our ranges of our prioritized pupil groups are from anywhere from about 70 to about 150 per site. And that's, you know, there's some overlap with the iReady data results as well, but that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of each school site. It just kind of depends on their individual population. So, you know, with that said, it's not it's definitely not one class that we're looking at per site. It's a good amount of our students. With, I guess I could just reiterate that between 80 to 150 invited, because of course we'll have to see who actually attends and takes us up on our offer, because we know that other things are going on during the summer as well.
Right. That's a perfect way into the question that I have you address is to help us understand how you're recruiting, how you're doing this outreach to these families, especially for these young families who maybe have not had experience with the school district yet, right? Their littles are going to be in the first of their kiddos to join the schools, or those families who don't have good connectivity. How are you getting to them and helping them to understand what they would be missing if they don't enroll?
Sure. So, yeah, that's a wonderful question, and that's something that I have to say we've been working on all year long. So our school site staff, our principals, and our support staff have done an amazing job of really reaching out to our parents and our families, and you know, we'll do site visits. So we're starting off with the resources that we have for communication. Parent Square is a tool that we use quite readily. But for parents who, for some reason, are not accessing Parent Square, our school site staff make phone calls. They literally do home visits as well. And so our site staff is really kind of, I have to say, almost relentless about reaching out to our community members. And I say that with a really positive tone to it, that they just don't give up and make sure that everyone is contacted.
Had to unmute myself there. I don't want you to think it's flawless. Um, we'd love to have you talk a little bit about how this is different from prior summers. You know, how in terms of design and approach you're tackling 2021 as opposed to 2019, 2018.
Sure. So typically, I mentioned the dual language immersion academy that we have, and that's something that we've had for the past several years. And I mentioned you know, the sort of tweaking that we're doing of that program already, and you know, the content and really focusing on oral language literacy. In the past, so in 2019, we did offer a literacy camp to our students, but it was at one site, and we pooled students based on at the time it was their DIBELS data. And so we looked at their data and invited them, primarily third and fourth grade students, to one of our sites from all 8 of our elementary schools. So this year would be quite different because, as I mentioned, we're looking at having a summer program at every one of our school sites. And again, the big difference is that we want it to be incredibly engaging, and we want it to be fun, and we want to include all of those extracurriculars, all of that additional curriculum to really make it engaging. I mean, there's the big thing that has come up is all of the screen time that our students have had, and that has been great, and it has served a wonderful purpose. As a matter of fact, here we are, right? Here we are in a Zoom meeting. And so the same for our students, that it's been great to have that. But for the summer, we really want to take advantage of that in-person instruction and really just kind of getting the kids out and, you know, physically active. And so I would say that those are the big differences. So how many programs we're offering, and then the nature of the program as well.
It sounds like you're really putting a lot of emphasis on the hearts of these littles that you'll be serving this summer. Um, can you talk a little bit about how your district leadership is thinking about assessing the efficacy of this program with so much emphasis on something that's kind of tricky to measure? How will you define success? How will you know if it was fun and engaging and positive and all the things that you talked about?
Sure. So I mentioned the iReady data that we're looking at now. That's not necessarily going to measure the fun factor, but we are. But with that said, we still have the academic component to the summer program. So we're using our iReady diagnostic assessments to really measure, academic achievement, academic progress that has occurred over the summer. So we'll use our end of the year assessment. And then at the beginning of next year, we'll also use the next diagnostic.
Got it. Couple more quick questions. Inquiring minds want to know how you're funding it. Are you using AB 86? Are you using stimulus funds? How are you financing this enterprise?
We are using AB 86. Primarily, this is how we are using those funds. So, when we were given the opportunity, we were given these funds. This is what we determined. How is it that we're going to make use of these dollars that we don't normally have to really expand upon what we offer and above and beyond that, really design programs that are specific to these times and what our students need right now because of the pandemic.
Great. And then one last question. You didn't speak to this when you presented, but I know I have some insider info and know that you're really going to be managing the afternoons of this summer program for support for your paraprofessionals, and would love if you talk about how you're interlacing professional development this summer into this school year.
Sure. So, and these programs too, for the most part, these that I've discussed, they take place for the morning until about noon. That's what we're looking at. And so the afternoon, we are really taking advantage of that additional time that we can have for our staff, in particular, our paraprofessionals, to come in to get professional development that we're not able to normally offer. So that's another way that we are taking advantage of these funds that we have at this time.
Thank you. I drew you a curveball. I appreciate you being ready for it. Well, this has been super helpful. I really appreciate taking this time. I'm going to turn our focus a little bit now and introduce you to our next two amazing presenters. I'd like to introduce you to Dolly Goyle and Jennifer Lorock. Dolly is the Library Services Manager for Youth and Families in county libraries. She has over 16 years of experience working in diverse library communities throughout the Bay Area, and she actively leads professional development within the California Library Association, the Association of Library Services to Children, and the American Library Association. She's worked with Inspiring Summers program since 2016, and she's the lead project coordinator from the San Mateo County Libraries. She received her Master of Library and Information Science degree from San Jose State University. Jennifer Lorock, who's going to be presenting with her, has spent the majority of her career in Jefferson Elementary School District in Daly City, which is just south of San Francisco. The first 10 years in the district, she was an elementary school principal, and the most recent 6 years, she's been working as a district administrator on multiple projects, including Big Lift Inspiring Summers, the new teacher induction, and managing district grants. With all things that were new in 2020, Jennifer was asked to lead the district virtual school option for more than 500 middle school students. She's got a focus on student equity and quality relationship building at the core of her work, and she's enjoyed learning and growing in a supportive environment. She lives on the peninsula with her husband and 3 children and enjoys watching her kids play sports on the weekends and catching up with friends and family. All right, Dolly and Jennifer, I'm going to hand it off to you now.
Thanks so much, Chris, for the introduction. My name is Dolly Coyle. I'm happy to start to discuss the Big Lift Inspiring Summers with everyone today.
Thanks, everyone. I am Jennifer Lorock, and I am happy to join Dolly to discuss Big Lift Inspiring Summers.
We're very excited to share our experience with you today on the Big Lift Inspiring Summers, but I did want to give everyone a short background on what the Big Lift is. The Big Lift is a collective impact initiative and extending from preschool to third grade in San Mateo County, California. And it began in the mid-90s when the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, in partnership with the County of San Mateo and the Office of Education, funded a collaborative focusing on improving the lives of children and families throughout the county. In April 2011, community members and county leaders convened to explore priorities, and from this emerged the importance of tackling third grade reading proficiency. The Big Lift officially launched in 2012, and the initiative aims to boost children's reading proficiency by third grade through 4 different types of activities called the pillars. The pillars include high quality preschool, summer learning, which is Inspiring Summers, school attendance, and family engagement. The first year of program implementation was the school year 2015 to 2016, in which 4 school districts received funding and support from the Big Lift to implement 4 pillars. And then in the subsequent year, we added 3 additional districts to receive funding and support for the program. During this time, the San Mateo County Libraries joined as a partner with the Big Lift to support Inspiring Summers. In the summer of 2018, the Silicon Valley Community Foundation stepped out of program management, and the San Mateo County Libraries took on convening our partners and working really closely around enrollment and other logistical pieces of the program. These are our partners currently in our program for the Inspiring Summers portion. We see the County of San Mateo, especially with part of Metro K funding, the San Mateo County Office of Education, the library, of course, and the Silicon Valley Community Foundation. And of course, one of our favorite partners is Bell Excel to support the program itself. In general, libraries are very well positioned to lead these efforts in partnership with the county and our school districts because we are experienced collaborators. We're experts in developing and maintaining community partnerships, and we're also very flexible. I'm not sure if everyone has worked with libraries, but we are quite nimble partners. We're able to offer resources, additional resources around education, spaces, manpower, and we are often very highly trusted within our communities. So let me share a little bit more about the program structure for the Inspiring Summers program. The program has evolved in a couple iterations. I know we started off with 5 weeks, full day, and in time, due to changes in funding and our federal administration, we went down to 4 weeks, but we're back at 5 weeks. 5 weeks, and it's a 5 days a week program, Monday through Friday, full day, 8 hours a day. The program serves rising kindergartner through third graders. And the program structure used to be 4 days of curriculum instruction and 1 day of field trip, but we have since changed the program to be 5 days of full instruction to maximize learning time and to really mitigate summer learning loss. In our mornings, we have academic instruction with credentialed teachers provided by our school district partners, and we work off the Bell Excel curriculum model. In the afternoon, we have a STEM enrichment program with our library interns, we call facilitators, who administer the program, and we follow the CREATE curriculum, which I'll talk a little bit more about a little bit later. Interwoven into our programs, we have mindfulness activities and community presentations, which can range from local community members, resources, or it could just be a nice kind of field trip, virtual field trip, or in-person field trip. I'll talk more about that as well. We provide healthy meals. It's super important to make sure our kids are well fed in the morning and in the afternoon. And there are opportunities throughout the program for family engagement in the morning, as well as at the end of the day and at the end of the program. And finally, I'm sure everyone wants to know how we do this, but especially given the past few years, we definitely follow safety guidelines that are based on the California Department of Public Health, the CDE, and of course the Pandemic Recovery Framework. I'm going to pass it on to Jennifer right now to share more about the morning program.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Dolly, is this where we're going to be showing the video?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we put together a very short video. It's about 2 minutes long. It's a day in the life of our students. We call them scholars. So it's a day in the life of a scholar. And the video that you're going to be seeing is actually our program from summer 2020, where things did look a little different. But my guess is if you asked any of our scholars, they wouldn't have noticed much difference at all. The only difference that probably stuck out to them is that we had to shorten our program day. So in the video, you'll see typically, as Dolly mentioned, we have an 8-hour day. Last summer, we did have to stop the program just as lunch was being catered for us. So I hope you enjoy it. Just to mention, the goal of this video that we made originally last summer was to help district leaders and district teachers for the opening of this fall. And what we were hearing as we slowly closed last spring is that teachers and leaders were getting very nervous and scared about what fall might look like. So we took a moment to take a couple snapshots from the kids and a couple of videos from the kids to let them, teachers and leaders, know that there's really nothing to be scared about. The kids are so happy and joyful and so excited to join us last summer. And we hope that this video eased a little of the fears that some of our district staff and leaders had, and I think it did. So please take a look.
Welcome. We're so glad that you are here at Big Lift Student Anthony with us. We are thrilled for the next 4 weeks of school together, and we're really glad to know that we may be wearing masks that look like this, or maybe they look like this some days, and some might look like this. But no matter what, you'll see that our mask is always covering our nose and our mouth. And when you're coming to and leaving from school, we are having you do the same thing. That's one way that we're all being germ-fighting superheroes.
Gosh, I can't believe here we are, 2021. I'd like to everyone just please remember that that video was, at this point, almost 10 months old. We were the first collaboration in the peninsula in San Francisco Bay Area to actually do an in-person school. So everything was very new. I know we're all old pros at this point, but the video was very helpful to, again, help our district in planning for the fall, and even more so now planning for this summer. Pre-COVID, we were able to, in our program, have a community breakfast time, which we always thought was an amazing time for our community to come together. Every morning we would have the students come to school at around 8:30, and their parents, and if they had other siblings at home, we'd all meet together in a multi-use room and we would have breakfast together. And during that breakfast time, the administrator may come on the loudspeaker and give some announcements for the day. We had all the parents there, we had the kids there. We'd also invite outside resource communities to come visit us. For example, maybe the police station would send a representative to come talk to the kids and to the families, or other facilitators from the library would come and talk to the families. It was a great community building time where we had breakfast and announcements. After that, our breakfast comes to a conclusion. All the kids clean up their areas and we retreat to our classrooms. We call them clusters. All the kids go to their clusters, and there we had a focus on English language arts for our first 5 years. And this year we're so excited to bring math as a secondary focus for our morning curriculum. Infused with a little bit of outdoor activity, some recess time. All of our clusters have the credential teacher and a library facilitator. So we always have 2 adults in the classroom, which makes center time and independent work time flow much easier. As you can imagine, more adults in the classroom. And every lesson is really designed as a whole class discussion, maybe some partner work, and then end with an independent activity. Along with the outdoor playtime, recess, and lunch, at about 12:30, 1 o'clock, the credential teacher taps a facilitator from the library and they switch spots. So the teacher leaves then for the day, and we have a second facilitator from the library come on and run the afternoon activities, which I will have Dolly explain.
Thanks, Jennifer. So yes, the afternoon curriculum is run by our facilitators, and we also have a library coach. So that's one of our full-time staff at the library, usually a librarian or a community program specialist level, and they oversee the facilitators on site, as well as collaborate with the school district partners. And the afternoon curriculum was created by the Center for Childhood Creativity from the Bay Area Discovery Museum. It's an evidence-based curriculum that follows the CREATE framework, which I have listed here. CREATE framework is something that we use for all of our programs at our library as well. And the programs are child-directed, risk-friendly, exploratory, active, time for imagination, and an exchange of ideas. They are STEM-based, very hands-on, very messy, very fun. And our facilitators lead all of these activities. They have a sense of training a week prior to camp, and they get to also test out the activities, and they can also modify it depending on the classroom learning level. Before I actually go into communication to families, I do want to also mention, as part of the afternoon curriculum, we do have mindfulness sessions that kind of help with a transition from lunch. We partnered with the nonprofit Headstand to provide training to all of our facilitators, all of our coaches, and even library staff as well, in case we need to step in. So that has been very helpful, especially during transitions when things can get really exciting. And we do incorporate a literacy as well.
I know for sense of time, we're running short here, so we'll skip the video, but I would like to mention that the integral part of the success of this program relies on the active communication that we have with families. We're communicating with families now for our summertime program, which similar to Mrs. Gonzalez, we are in the midst of planning right now as well. We depend on newsletters, emails, videos. We have a decent social media presence. We have websites that are designated just for Inspiring Summers. The Bell Excel curriculum gives us a lot of family resources that we use and can push out to the families. So especially in the year of COVID last year, communicate was the way that we found the most success in the program.
Thank you. There we go. We're gonna have to cut short a little bit, but I do have a couple of questions and thought maybe you and Jennifer could post some of these answers in the chat. Some of the key questions that have come up are questions around who leads each site with a collective program such as has been built at the Big Lift Inspiring Summers. Who's the site administrator? How did you solve against that? And maybe if you could give us a little picture of how the site leadership is staffed. And again, in the chat would be super helpful. And another question, Jennifer, particularly for you, is a question about whether you utilized any virtual tools to serve your little learners, either last summer or plan to do so this summer, if it is a completely screen-free environment, or are you utilizing some virtual tools to access those kiddos whose families are less comfortable sending them? If you have other questions out in the audience, please do enter them into chat. And I hate to cut these two powerful women short, but know that they have a lot of experience and resources to share. So please do go ahead and enter them. And with that, I'm going to transition over to our last speaker. Mary Parranek is the Senior Director of Program Design at Springboard Collaborative. She is a lifelong educator whose career has been inspired by a deep commitment to social justice. Before she came to Springboard full-time, Mary had the privilege of being a teacher and a literacy coach in Bronx public schools for 12 years. While she was there, she worked really hard to link quality teaching to her students and to their families and to the surrounding community. She's a graduate of the Leadership for Educational Change program at Bank Street College. She has an MS in childhood education from CUNY Lehman College and a BA in urban studies and political sciences from Barnard College. One of her favorite childhood books, we have this in common, is Where the Wild Things Are. It's a story whose lulling words and magical illustrations send imaginations soaring. Mary, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I feel very privileged to be presenting after the rest of you, and I feel very inspired by the things I've heard so far this morning. So today I'm going to tell you all a little bit more about Springboard Collaborative, and we're going to focus the presentation on meeting the needs of early learners. Next slide, please. So who is Springboard? What do we do? Our end goal is to help 100,000 students reach reading goals and 30,000 students read on grade level by 2023. We're really a literacy organization, and we do this utilizing a three-pronged approach. We coach and develop teachers within schools and school districts and sometimes CBOs as well. We engage and upskill families. That's really the beating heart of the work that we do. We help family members to learn how to be at-home reading coaches to their children. And then finally, of course, we cultivate reading habits in young readers aged pre-K, so 48-month-old children, and through third grade reading level. And so that's sort of our secret sauce to help us get to our impact goal. That's a little bit about us, and you'll learn more as I continue. Next slide, please. So some of our partners, we partner with large school districts, public school districts, charter school districts, and then also in California. You might be looking to see with the partners we've worked with thus far, and there are more that aren't listed here. LAUSD, Stockton, Fresno, San Francisco Unified, Oakland, I'm missing more, Salinas, Modesto, lots of different school districts. And as you all know, working with some of these school districts, especially in San Francisco, in LA, has meant partnerships with LEAs, CBOs. And so we're really talking about sort of a complex network of teams working together to support at-risk students across the board. Let's continue. So this is just a little bit more about the three-pronged approach, and you'll all get the slides here, but you can see a little bit more about sort of the impact that we have. And when I say family engagement and upskilling, how do we measure that? So you can take a look here at some of the ways that we measure our success and measure the effectiveness and efficacy of these three different prongs that we utilize to help our programs be successful and help to make sure that kids are reaching and achieving reading goals. Let's continue on. So the objectives for today, in the few minutes that we have left, I'd love to get to Q&A and resource dropping for you all. We're going to learn how Springboard has engaged families in programming throughout COVID-19 using our PHILA methodology. I'd like to show you our methodology. And then we're also going to share resources, including pre-K reading, readiness, and phonics lesson. So I want to drop that resource for you all to check out. I think Jessica has done it already, but we'll drop it again on time. So that you, in context, I should say. Jessica, it was perfect timing. So the PHILA method. The PHILA stands for Family Educator Learning Accelerator. It's the methodology that we use across all of our programs. We have really heavy touch, full management programs for summer and after school programming. And then we have lighter touch programs where schools can say, teach me the methodology, and I think that, you know, with some coaching, I can figure that out sort of on my own. And so we run the gamut in the ways in which we support districts or community-based organizations, but the blueprint is the same. And so I'm going to talk you through this briefly. We, like some of the other organizations here, we start with a team building huddle or a home visit or a virtual home visit. So this is when the team, which is the educator, the student, and the family member, meet together to talk about their commitments to the program, to learn a little bit more about each other, and to build a really healthy relationship, and talk about goal setting. And then we move into finding our starting point. So we partner with districts or help districts and CBOs use research-based assessments like DIBELS, or lean into assessments that they're already using like iReady. We also have an alternative method of finding a starting point using a family-facing questionnaire. Some of our partners would really want to lean in to their families as experts on their children, which of course they are, and to learn more about what's going on at home, what parents observe as reading habits of children. And based off of that, our AI is able to sort of deduce reading goals. And no matter what though, every PHILA starts with a goal setting moment based off of an assessment. And then we move into the fun part. This is the practice. Children are working towards a goal. Our programs are 5 to 10 weeks long. They're shorter spurts so that we ensure that people stay engaged, they're excited, and so that it's a bite-sized but high leverage reading goal that changes habits of the reader, and that the family members are also able to change their habits in order to support them as at-home reading coaches. So every child receives direct instruction, small group instruction, or one-to-one in some cases from their tutor or teacher. Every child is reading independently, either through books that they receive through us or through their school or through our partnership with Raz Plus, an online decodable text. They're practicing at home with their family and keeping track of the minutes that they're reading, and the ways in which they're practicing at home with parents. And then you saw some pictures before, the blue t-shirts, we have family workshops. So whether virtual or in person, and we have done both over the past year, family members come in and sit alongside right next to their child while the same teacher is upskilling family members in ways to be at-home reading coaches, in ways that ensure that the experience is dignified for parents with different levels of literacy, different levels of English language acquisition. We've been really careful to make sure that while our curricular materials that are family facing are research-based and are effective, that they also are inclusive. So at the end of the cycle, after doing this for 5 to 10 weeks, all these types of practices, we check growth. We go back to the same assessment that we used in the beginning. and we learn how the child has made progress. And then of course we end with the celebration. That's our methodology. Let's continue. All right, in the chat, you will find a reading, readiness, and phonics lesson. So Jessica, let's see, we didn't practice this. Can you click the link, letter recognition and phonemic awareness? Let's see if this works. It was dropped into the chat. There it is. It's in the chat. I'm not going to be able to share. Oh, great. This is an example really briefly, and we're going to go right back to the deck. Thank you for your agility there. I appreciate you. Here's an example of a deck that a teacher or tutor in our program would receive. They would actually receive 125 of these for research-based, systematic, sequential phonics, phonemic awareness, and phonics lessons. Our pre-K lessons in particular are aligned, of course, to pre-K standards, the California and New York pre-K standards, and then also to SEL standards. Now more than ever, we know that our young learners need those types of support. So if you have the time, peruse through these lessons and look in particular at the facilitator's notes and just how incredibly detailed they are. And you'll get the gist of sort of the resources that we provide to the teachers or tutors who are implementing programming. Let's go back to the deck if possible. And you will have this, you can use this, you can share this. Let's continue on. And then here's another website that was also dropped into the chat. This is our feelamethod.org website. And if you go there, you will find another abundance of resources. You will find scripts for those team building huddles. You will find coaching plans. You'll find materials and different resources for family members. These are open source. Please use them and check them out. And before moving to Q&A, we dropped a survey into the chat, and I'm going to drop it one more time. I would love to stay in touch with you. We would love to stay in touch with you if you have questions about resources. Jessica, if you could drop that one more time, the survey. If you have questions about any of our resources, if you have questions about partnering with us, if you'd like to learn more about doing a FELA at your school, we are here to work with you. Thank you so much. So please fill that out so that we can stay in touch. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Speaking of agility, thank you for yours. You spoke early on in your presentation about the connection with families being the heartbeat of your organization, which is a really sweet metaphor that I loved. And it sounds like partnerships are kind of the lifeblood of the work that you do. So would love to hear from you what you look for when you're building a partnership. What are some of those critical components that you look for partners to bring to the table, either practically or philosophically, to maximize success of those partnerships?
That is a great question. So when we are talking to different partners, we're often trying to better understand what their problem might be. And so sometimes partners are really looking to rev up that family engagement piece. And so oftentimes, as you all know, working with districts, there are different initiatives that are sort of centered at different times, or that are espoused by different leaders that are close to their heart in different ways. So family engagement is a huge piece. It's very important. And so if a partner that we're talking to doesn't really value it, we may not be the right fit for them. But also, we have had plenty of success with folks that have said, oh, these workshops would never work here in our district. And we have found that through partnering with them, we've been able to change habits of mind. So families, a second piece is just a commitment to high quality literacy instruction and reading growth. That's very important to us as well, and important to our partners in general as well. And so sometimes, depending on how the partnership conversation goes, we see partners that are like, what we really need to see is the reading growth. And of course we say, well, you're in luck, because not only is your reading growth going to go up, but so is your family participation. And then finally, the teacher professional development aspect, and this sort of leadership pipeline of teachers is another huge piece. We train teachers and we develop teachers to learn more about best practices and high quality literacy instruction, and also around sort of the merits and ways, like actual tactical ways to engage family members in children's learning. And so if there's a trifecta there, that a partner is looking for all three of those things, it works. And then the benefit is that if a partner is really invested in one of those initiatives, Typically, they sort of get a 3-for-1 deal, regardless of the fact. So thank you for asking my question.
That was super comprehensive. And I think a through line among all of our presenters today has been developing that teacher pipeline, developing staff from perhaps coming to summers with less experience than a traditional school year would be. Would love to know how Springboard Collaborative works with districts, which are some of the largest, and those can be difficult partnerships to forge with large school districts. How do you connect to the school year? What does that look like for Springboard Collaborative?
Sure, that's a great question. So we have a team of folks that would be dedicated to any given district. And to your point, it often even revving up for summer is a year-long process that begins in August of the summer that you just ended. We work very, very closely to understand districts well, to understand unions, to understand contracts, to understand the needs of families and community-based organizations. And we treat our partners and ensure that while we're holding strong to our core beliefs, we ensure that we also customize our programs to meet the specific needs of these sort of larger districts. And so what that means specifically, I guess, to get into the nitty-gritty, is just regular meetings with stakeholders across the board, parents. We haven't had meetings with students yet. That's actually something I should bring back to my team. But parents, administrators, principals, teachers, all of these different folks along the lines. And our team has specialists that work with sort of different components and pockets of these like really large district partnerships to help to get those off the ground.
Super helpful. Thank you. Well, Mary, thank you for taking time. I'm going to start wrapping us up. I really want to thank all for our panelists. You all shared time and expertise with us today. And those of you who are watching either live or via recorded webinar, thank you for taking the time to join us. A couple of notes before we sign off. We would very much appreciate everyone filling out a very brief survey that's being dropped in the chat right now. This will help us to develop resources and support that can be useful to the field as we move forward. Next week, Partnership for Children and Youth will be launching a summer technical assistance hub. This can be accessed through our website and will be available to provide districts with no cost individualized coaching and support to help implement programming this summer. We'll be sending a recording of this session and all the resources and slides to everyone who registered for the webinar, and we'll also be posting this to our website and our social media channels. Really important that we thank the California Collaborative for Educational Excellence for supporting us in offering this series of webinars. We're thrilled to be part of the solution in providing useful information and connection to our field. So as you complete your survey, I will say thank you once again. We hope to see you next time and wish you all a terrific day.